obliged. My legs were trained in many genres. They could perform a waltz to perfection. 10 years ago, when I was presented to him in that wretched woman's cold drawing room, he couldn't stop looking at those legs with his lecherous eyes. If only he'd realized then why they were shaking. If only he'd realized that they were the quivering limbs of a frightened child newly stolen from Africa. "Queen Victoria's goddaughter," Bellamy said, as he intertwined his fingers with mine. "The enslaved African princess given sanctuary by the Queen. How I've wanted you for so long." My stomach churned as I thought of his sickening looks and not so subtle advances, never returned for a decade until now. "Why, Mr. Bellamy." In the editor's foyer, I jumped a little and bit back my anger when the stupid drunkard's free hand reached lower than the crease of my back. His pants tightened as he stared at the teasing glimpse of my breasts, tightly bound in a laced-off white corset. Now that I was freshly 18, there was no reason for him to hide his carnal desires. Yanking his hands off me, I grabbed the whiskey and poured it down his throat, making sure he downed this bottle, the third he'd managed in my presence due to my insistence. "Tell me again what it was like to climb the Duke of York's tower with the famous Antoine Claudet." My voice was pleasing to the ear, melodic like music. I'd learned how to make it this way. It was how I survived. I rubbed the bald spot on his head, because I knew British men like him loved to be flattered like children. Or, better yet, I added with a wink, perhaps you can tell me in your bedchambers. There was a term used among the British men who expressed their deepest fears and most hypocritical, insatiable desires concerning girls like me. The reason why so many of their wives feared when their husbands would travel overseas to lands unknown, going native. It was as if there was something all too alluring about the possibility of breaking every fetter of Victorian codes of conduct and plunging deep into the dark bosom of devilry. For Bellamy, I had been too carefully watched by Queen Victoria and a royal lot for him to make a move. But now his wife was away. I was here. A secret meeting. No one would ever know. The history books will certainly never tell the tale. Mr. Bellamy's unfocused eyes rolled to the back of his head, and his laughter echoed across the flower-patterned wallpaper as he let me take his hand and lead him up the winding staircase. He was already hastily unfastening the buttons on his breeches with the other. I stifled an irritated sigh. Not everyone on my list would be this easy, but I'd studied them well. Everyone had a weak point. Once Mr. Bellamy reached the top of the stairs, I made sure the sweep of my foot was quick and quiet. And then he tumbled down the stairs, with his scream stuck in his throat. His soft flesh silently collided with the wood with dull thumps, except when his elbows knocked against the walls. I looked away. Bellamy died when his neck twisted with a crunch on the floor. As saliva trickled from his open mouth, I stayed, my trembling hand against my heaving chest. The memories of his advances throughout the years calmed my breaths. I shut my eyes and forced myself to think of them, the way he'd grab my flesh after licking his fingers, the sickening words he'd whisper in my ear at social events when he thought no one was watching. He wanted to defile my body, and so now his lay crumpled upon the wretched ground. The police would rule this a foolish accident. A former editor fired from his newspaper